I came home from work and found my bedroom transformed. My bed gone, a crib in the middle, and my sister folding baby clothes like she owned the place. When I asked what was going on, she said, "Mom said it's fine. You've got the office, right?" "Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm 31. I bought the house my parents live in, and somehow I became the villain in my own home. They called me ungrateful. They told the whole family I turned my back on them. So I showed up at the reunion with bank statements and the house deed in hand. You think that changed anything? Well, you'll see." Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments, and if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way, I can send you a special greeting. Now, let's start the story together. I used to think that buying a house would feel like crossing some invisible finish line, that once I held the keys, I'd finally be free, untouchable, independent, solid. But the truth is, freedom comes with a mortgage, a lawn to mow, and 3 sinks that all drip at different speeds. Still, I remember the moment I signed the last closing document, my fingers slightly trembling as I pressed the pen to the page. It felt less like a ceremony and more like a quiet, personal contract with myself. I'd done it. After years of working double shifts, saving bonuses, saying no to every spontaneous getaway with friends, I had my own place. It wasn't extravagant, just a 3-bedroom home tucked into a sleepy street near Capitol Hill, Seattle. The siding needed a power wash, and the backyard sloped a little awkwardly, but it was mine. The house smelled of freshly laid wood floors and lavender cleaner. The cherry blossoms lining the sidewalk were in bloom, scattering soft petals across the walkway like some sort of congratulations from nature. My parents arrived 2 weeks later with cardboard boxes, mismatched luggage, and stories about their long drive from the suburbs of Spokane. Evelyn, my mother, stepped into the house and immediately said, "This place smells like new beginnings." Robert, my father, just smiled, carrying in a crate of her flower pots without a word. They'd both retired early, Mom from teaching 3rd grade, Dad from public transit. When they said they were thinking about downsizing and moving closer to me, it seemed like perfect timing. I had the space, I had the means, and more than anything, I wanted to give them comfort. They'd spent decades raising me with all the limitations of a teacher's paycheck and a bus driver's odd hours. The least I could do was offer them a place to rest. The layout was simple. I took the master bedroom, of course. The 2nd bedroom became my home office. With my job in software, I work remotely most days, so I set it up with care. 2 monitors, ergonomic chair, a small shelf for machine learning books. The 3rd room I kept for guests. Sparse, but tidy, just in case someone visited. The first few weeks were smooth. Mom woke early and tended to her plants by the window. Dad watched reruns of old westerns on low volume. I worked in the office, headphones in, meetings back to back, the gentle clink of dishes in the kitchen serving as a reassuring background rhythm. We had a system. Dinner together around 6, usually something warm and simple. Mom liked to make soup with far too many carrots, and I didn't complain. It felt decent, almost cozy. But slowly, the house began to shift in ways I didn't fully catch at first. One morning, I noticed my tea mugs had been rearranged. I'd always kept them alphabetized, an odd little quirk, but now they sat in color order, with my favorite one hidden in the back. A few days later, the curtains in the living room were replaced with brighter, patterned ones. The beige ones felt too serious, Mom explained, waving a hand like it was an obvious improvement. I let it go. It was just mugs, just curtains, little things, and besides, they seemed happy. Then, one evening, after dinner, while we were watching an old nature documentary together, Mom glanced up during a commercial break and said, "You know, this house really feels like we're staying in a fancy Airbnb." She chuckled. I smiled tightly. "Except I'm the one paying the bills." She laughed again, not unkindly. "Well, we raised you right, didn't we?" I didn't say anything. That weekend, I sat alone in the office with a cup of lukewarm coffee, scrolling through emails when Mom knocked gently on the doorframe. She leaned against it, arms crossed, that soft, thoughtful look she wore when she was about to plant a new idea. "If Monica and Travis ever run into trouble," she began, "we could let them stay here for a bit. I mean, the guest room's lovely, or even your office, just for a little while." I didn't respond at first. I stared at her. I must have blinked too slowly because she added, "Only if it ever came to that. I just thought you'd want to help too." The room felt colder all of a sudden. I could feel the walls pressing in, just a little. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up around midnight to grab some water and saw something that made me stop mid-step. A suitcase, tan, well-used, tucked neatly in the hallway closet, barely visible unless you knew to look. A worn leather tag hung from the handle, stamped across it in faded black letters, Monica Wells, my sister's name. I stood there for a long minute, the fridge door still open behind me, humming quietly into the silence. Then I closed the fridge, turned off the kitchen light, and walked back to my room. My room. For now. Because deep down, I knew exactly what that suitcase meant, and I had a feeling no one was planning to ask me before using the key. I didn't hear a knock, no call, no message, just the sound of my own front door swinging shut behind me and a sudden, unfamiliar weight in the air. It smelled different, too, like vanilla lotion and baby powder, scents that didn't belong to me. The rain had started falling harder just as I turned onto my street. I'd stopped to pick up groceries, eggs, kale, the almond milk I liked, then trudged up the porch, bags damp, ready to settle in for the afternoon. Instead, I stepped into chaos. The entryway was cluttered with things I didn't recognize. A pair of bright green sneakers, boxes labeled 3 to 6 months' clothes, a folded stroller leaning against the wall, and a canvas diaper bag that sat right in the middle of the hallway like a lazy dog. I froze. Water dripped from my sleeves onto the hardwood floor. Voices floated in from the kitchen, laughter. And then, her voice. "Lauren, you're home!" Monica emerged with a wide smile, her belly leading the way. She looked like she had already been here for hours, days even. Her cheeks were rosy, and her hair was pulled back in that casually perfect way she always managed. Behind her, Travis followed, nodding at me like we were bumping into each other at a gas station. "We just got in this morning," she said, arms already opening for a hug. "Mom said it was fine. I told her you'd understand." I didn't move. She wrapped me anyway. Her perfume smelled sweet and thick. Too sweet. "You're the best, Lauren. Seriously, this means so much to us." I stepped back, slowly. My eyes searched the room like I was looking for proof that this wasn't actually happening. Travis had already kicked off his shoes and flopped onto the couch. Football played loudly on the TV, and his socks, gray with holes, were resting on my coffee table. Evelyn came in next, drying her hands with a dish towel. "They needed help," she said, her voice soft and a little too rehearsed. "It's just temporary. You understand, right?" I nodded. Automatically, I didn't know what else to do. The next hour was a blur. Monica walked me through her vision for the nursery, which included hanging floating shelves and repainting something gender-neutral but modern. Travis asked where the remote was, even though it sat right next to him. My almond milk was gone from the fridge. So were the eggs I'd just bought the day before. By dinner, I was running on autopilot. I cooked quietly while Monica chatted with Mom, laughing over childhood stories that somehow always ended with me being the serious one. Travis kept turning up the TV volume even though no one was watching. I sat across from Monica at the table, chewing slowly while she balanced a phone in one hand and a fork in the other. Halfway through the meal, she said it. "You know," she began casually, "your bathtub is perfect for a newborn. Ours just doesn't get enough light." She smiled as she said it, like it was some harmless observation. Evelyn giggled, reaching across to spoon more green beans onto Monica's plate. I didn't say anything. I swallowed, set my fork down gently, and looked at my plate as if I were studying it for answers. They moved on to another topic, but I didn't follow. I heard them, sure, but it felt like listening to a movie from another room. Something about Travis's job, Monica's birth plan, a baby shower Evelyn wanted to host, right here, in my house. After dinner, I went up to my office. The door was slightly ajar, the air inside colder than I remembered. And there it was, a folding mattress, thin, floral, borrowed from some relative, spread out in the middle of the floor. A pillow with a dent in it already, and a small pile of folded blankets beside it. My ergonomic chair had been shoved awkwardly into the corner, facing the wall like it had been scolded. I stood there for a while just staring. The hum of the rain against the windows was the only sound. In that moment, I remembered something from when I was 14. Monica had asked if she could use my desk. Just for finals week, she'd said. It had been pushed against the window in our shared room, and I loved sitting there with my notebook spread out and the light coming in just right. She'd put her things on it, one book at a time, and never gave it back. I didn't fight her then. I moved my books to the floor. I studied on my bed. I told myself it didn't matter. Back then, I thought giving something up was just part of being the younger sister. Now, as I looked at the mattress on the floor, I realized I had never stopped making space for other people. Not really. But this wasn't a shared bedroom in our parents' house. This was mine. And for the first time, I started wondering how much more of it I was willing to give away. They didn't shout. They didn't push. No one stormed through a door or threw anything across the room. But somehow, piece by piece, they took the house from under my feet, quietly, completely. It started with a door. Mine. Unlocked. I had been gone all day. Something rare for me. A client had requested an in-person walkthrough for a new software deployment, so I left early in the morning and didn't return until nearly 6. Tired, damp from Seattle's unpredictable drizzle, I pushed through the front door expecting the usual. The muffled sound of the TV, the scent of reheated leftovers, maybe Travis's shoes in the middle of the hallway again. But the house was oddly quiet. Upstairs, the hallway lights were dim. I reached the top landing and saw something that made me stop. One of my small dressers was sitting outside my bedroom, drawer half open, like it had been rolled out in a hurry. I blinked, unsure for a second if I was in the right house. Then I turned the doorknob. The lock had been left open. The room, my room, was no longer mine. The bed was stripped. No sheets, no comforter, no familiar indentation in the pillow where I usually curled up reading. In their place stood a white crib in the center of the room, adorned with pastel blankets and a soft giraffe toy tucked neatly into the corner. On the wall above it were 3 black and white ultrasound photos, taped slightly crooked, fluttering in the breeze from the cracked window. My desk had been pushed against the far wall, half buried under a diaper bag and 2 plastic bins labeled newborn. A bottle of scented oil, lavender and something sugary, sat on the windowsill, filling the air with a smell that was sweet but sharp, almost medicinal. Monica was sitting on what used to be my bed. She didn't look up immediately. She was folding baby clothes, tiny onesies, pastel bibs. Her movements were calm, efficient, like she'd done this in dozens of rooms before, like she belonged. When she finally noticed me, her expression didn't shift much. "Oh, hey," she said, "you're back. I was just finishing up in here." I didn't move. She smiled a little. "Mom said it's fine. It's just easier this way. You've got the office, right?" I didn't answer. My throat felt dry, like I'd swallowed air the wrong way. I turned and walked out without a word, back down the stairs, past the living room where Travis was nowhere to be seen, into the kitchen that now looked like someone else's space. Monica's mason jars, Evelyn's new spice rack, a half-written baby registry on the fridge. That night, I boiled water in silence. The sound of the kettle was the only thing grounding me. I made instant noodles. chicken flavor. No vegetables left in the fridge, just a half-open jar of pickles, a bottle of Travis's orange sports drink, and 3 yogurt cups with someone else's initials on the lid. I took the bowl to my office. The mattress was still on the floor from when Monica had temporarily moved in. My monitor had been unplugged and moved aside, my chair wedged awkwardly between a pile of donated baby items and a stack of unopened mail. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, balancing the bowl in one hand, chopsticks in the other. The noodles were overcooked, rubbery, but I chewed slowly, one bite at a time, staring at the blank wall in front of me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something slower, heavier. I set the bowl down and reached for my laptop. It was habit at first, muscle memory, open browser, new tab, but this time my fingers didn't go to email. I typed, Seattle landlord, tenant law, family eviction. I clicked on one link, then another. I read slowly. I took notes. My eyes scanned legal terms, tenant definitions, what constitutes a guest, what makes someone an occupant. I read stories, threads from other people who had let family move in just for a while and ended up locked out of their own homes. There was something oddly comforting about the language. Cold, precise. It didn't care who was pregnant or who had been invited by someone else. It only cared about ownership, about names on deeds, about paper trails. By midnight, I had 2 draft documents open, one labeled Notice Monica Travis, the other Notice Evelyn Robert. Each stated the terms clearly: 30 days to vacate, formal request for departure issued by legal property owner. I read them 3 times, checked for errors, then saved each as a PDF. My hands didn't shake. I stood quietly and walked back upstairs. The hallway was still dim, still heavy with a silence that now felt earned. I slipped the first envelope under the guest room door, the second under the door to the room that used to be mine. No yelling, no confrontation, just paper and truth, and the beginning of a boundary. I went back to my office and sat on the mattress, knees drawn up, the silence pressing against me like a second skin. And for the first time since they moved in, I didn't feel like a daughter. I felt like a landlord. It's strange how fast love can sour when you stop making quiet sacrifices. One week, they're calling you generous. The next, you're the one who's changed. The morning after Monica and Travis left, the house felt eerily still. No TV blaring from the living room, no open cabinets in the kitchen, no damp towels left on the banister. Just quiet, heavy and awkward, like someone had forgotten to turn the volume back up on life. Evelyn didn't say much. She still folded my laundry and left it outside the office door in a neat stack, but the warmth was gone. No notes tucked inside like before, no knock. Just fabric, folded with care, placed like a peace offering that didn't know who it was for. Monica had packed with stiff hands and flared nostrils. Travis didn't say goodbye. As they wheeled their bags down the driveway, Monica turned back once and said in a voice too calm to be kind, "You'll regret this, Lauren." I didn't reply. I just watched the SUV back out onto the street, the baby seat still installed in the back, as if they were sure they'd be returning. Later that day, I opened Facebook out of habit, and there it was, Monica's post. Some people forget who helped them first. Underneath, a sea of heart reacts, sad faces, and dozens of comments. Aunt May wrote, "You don't deserve this." Elaine added, "Family should be a place of safety, not judgment." I didn't comment, I didn't even like it, though my finger hovered over the screen for longer than I care to admit. The notifications rolled in, shared photos from our childhood, Monica smiling with a baby onesie held to her chest, caption, "Strength comes in silence." No one tagged me, but everyone knew who the silence was about. The group chats were worse. On Family Thread, Sunday dinners, a flurry of messages came in from people I hadn't seen in years. I can't believe she actually did it. Pregnant or not, that's still your sister. Your mother must be heartbroken. Maybe she's just stressed from work? Each message was like a pebble dropped into a calm lake. small, but the ripples wouldn't stop. I wanted to defend myself, wanted to scream. I paid the mortgage. I fed them. I gave up everything, but I knew how it would sound. And worse, I knew how it would look. Guilt has a smell. It's not sour or sharp. It's stale, lingering, like something left too long in the fridge. I smelled it every time Evelyn passed me in the hallway without making eye contact. She didn't argue. She didn't lecture. But she sighed a lot. And when I made dinner, she'd quietly reheat leftovers instead. Only Robert was different. One evening, as I sat reading at the kitchen table, he placed a sealed envelope beside me and walked away. No words. Inside, cash. A simple note in his slanted handwriting. Electricity. I didn't cry, but I did close the book and stare at the wall for a long time. It wasn't money, it was acknowledgement. Later that week, as I scrolled through my messages again, I noticed something strange. The family recipes thread, a chat Evelyn had started years ago where we all swapped Thanksgiving tips and Christmas cookie photos, was gone from my list. At first, I thought I'd accidentally archived it, but when I searched, it didn't come up, not even under hidden. I texted Elaine. Me, hey, is the recipes thread still going? Elaine, oh, you're not in it? Me, guess not. Elaine, awkward. No follow-up. I scrolled through old messages and landed on one about the upcoming family reunion. I hadn't paid much attention. Those gatherings were usually just a long drive and some lukewarm potato salad. But something caught my eye this time. There was a flyer attachment. Family Reunion 2023, hosted by Monica Wells and Evelyn Chen. I stared at it, reread it. My name wasn't anywhere near the hosted by line. Then a new message pinged in. Group thread. Chen Reed Mason Summer Bash. Looking forward to the reunion. Let's celebrate family and forgiveness. I was listed in the message, technically included, but not a single comment mentioned me. Not one, can't wait to see you, Lauren. Not even a hope you're coming. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, the light from the screen making the room feel colder than it was. And I thought, no one kicked me out. No one said I couldn't be part of this family. They just acted like I already wasn't. They erased my name behind my back. So I brought the receipts, paper, ink, and fax that didn't care about tone or family history. I reopened the folder on my desktop for the 10th time that morning. House Payments 2021 to 2023.pdf. The document had no emotion, no explanation, just line after line of deposits, transfers, and mortgage deductions, all with my name, my account, my effort. Next came the utility records, grocery receipts, Venmo screenshots where no one ever paid me back, and a simple one-page timeline. When they moved in, when Monica took over the guest room, when my bedding disappeared, when the eviction notice went out. I printed 5 sets, stapled, organized, slipped them into manila envelopes like quiet shields. The family reunion was being held in Olympia this year, in Uncle Jerry's backyard. He always preferred it that way, said the city was too noisy, and potluck should mean something you bring from your own kitchen, not from Costco. The drive took just over an hour. I didn't play music, just rolled down the window and let the warm August air swirl in and out. When I arrived, the party had already begun. Paper lanterns swung gently between trees. Folding chairs circled the fire pit. Tables were covered with mismatched tablecloths and bowls of potato salad, deviled eggs, and someone's half-burnt casserole. The usual noise, kids shrieking, adults laughing too loudly, washed over me as I stepped through the side gate, envelope clutched tightly under my arm. I wore neutral colors. Beige blouse. Black slacks. No jewelry except my watch. Monica was the first person I saw. She stood beneath a string of lights, surrounded by a tight ring of aunts and cousins, laughing into her paper cup. She wore a soft pink dress that floated just above her ankles, and her belly curved beneath it like a badge. When someone spotted me, the laughter dimmed. Not stopped, but muted, like someone had reached for the volume knob. I offered a polite smile. No one returned it. I busied myself near the drinks table, pretending to fix myself a soda I didn't want. I nodded at a few uncles who gave me those half-smiles men use when they don't want to pick a side. Evelyn waved briefly from across the yard. Robert gave me a nod, hands in his pockets. Monica never looked my way. Lunch was served buffet style. I moved through the line in silence, loading my plate with food I didn't taste. The family gathered at the long table under the canopy. I sat near the end. Uncle Jerry stood for his usual toast, clinking a fork against his solo cup. His voice cut through the small talk. "To family," he said. "The ones who drive you crazy, who steal your casseroles, and who still show up anyway." A few laughs. "And especially," he added, raising his cup, "to those of us who remember what family means, even if others forget." The silence after that sentence was sharper than the toast itself. I stood. No one expected it. A chair creaked, a fork dropped. Monica finally looked at me. "Before this goes any further," I said, my voice even but clear, "I think it's only fair that you hear my version of the story." I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelopes. I passed them down both ends of the table, one toward Aunt May, one toward Cousin Elaine, one toward Uncle Jerry. Inside each, copies of payment records, tax receipts, and that one-page timeline with dates. No commentary, no emotion, just facts. "I paid for the house," I said simply. "I covered the mortgage, the groceries, the utilities. I offered space. I asked for respect. What I got in return was silence, rearranged locks, and a crib in my bedroom." Someone coughed. "I didn't kick anyone out," I added. "I asked for boundaries. When they were ignored, I followed the law. Not emotion, not gossip." No one clapped. No one argued. Monica stood up slowly, her cup still in hand. Her expression didn't waver. She looked at me for a long moment, maybe hoping I'd soften, maybe waiting for something that didn't come. Then she turned and walked away. Aunt May looked down at the packet in her lap, then at the half-eaten potato salad in front of her. Uncle Jerry cleared his throat. "Well, damn," no one else spoke. I sat back down, folded my napkin, and reached for my soda. Across the table, Evelyn blinked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Forgiveness doesn't always mean opening the door again. Sometimes it just means locking it, with love, and not waiting on the porch for someone else to understand why. The house was quiet again, not the strained, heavy silence of resentment, but the kind that let you exhale, the kind that held space instead of swallowing it. The late August sun filtered through the kitchen window, catching dust motes in the air, and for the first time in a long while, the stillness didn't ache. I passed the hallway closet as I moved toward the stairs. It had once overflowed with Monica's baby supplies, stacked boxes, pastel blankets, a bottle warmer that hummed all night. Now it held just a vacuum, a folded umbrella, and a basket of fresh dish towels. I opened it briefly, adjusted the towels, and closed the door again. No bitterness, just closure. That Sunday, Evelyn came by. No Monica, no bags, no new curtains draped over her arm, just her alone, with a glass container of homemade soup wrapped in a dish towel and a knitted shawl I hadn't seen since winter. She didn't knock. She didn't need to. I'd left the door unlocked that day, unsure if I meant it as habit or invitation. She stepped inside quietly, paused in the entryway, then made her way to the kitchen without speaking. I didn't rush to fill the silence. Some words only show up when they're ready, not when we push them out. She placed the soup on the counter, then held the shawl to her chest for a moment before setting it down too. She looked around, not at anything specific, just the room itself, like she was scanning for the past few months that had happened here without her. "I don't want to stay," she said finally. "I just wanted to see you." I nodded and motioned for her to sit. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. She exhaled slowly. "You were right," she said, "about all of it." I didn't answer right away. She continued, eyes fixed on the window. "I didn't know how to stand by you without feeling like I was failing Monica. She's my daughter, too. And sometimes it's hard not to flinch at the idea that I let one of you down." I folded my hands around the mug in front of me. The tea had gone cold. "I wasn't asking you to choose," I said quietly. "I was asking you to see me." She turned then, slowly, and looked at me, not just with her eyes, but with that old softness I remembered from childhood, the one she used when I was sick, or when my science project fell apart the night before it was due. It was a kind of attention I hadn't felt from her in years. We didn't cry. We didn't make dramatic promises. We just sat there, two women in a sunlit kitchen, listening to the breeze through the open window. Eventually, she stood. She didn't ask for forgiveness, and I didn't offer it like a wrapped gift. But as she reached for her purse, she left something else, small but real, a note, pinned to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a peach. It read, "Thank you for still opening the door." After she left, I tidied up the kitchen, poured out the cold tea, and pulled out a small notepad from the drawer by the microwave. I wrote across the top in neat, all-capital letters, "House Rules," and underneath, the first line, 1. No more silent sacrifices. I didn't know what line 2 would be. Maybe something about always labeling leftovers, or about knocking before entering closed doors, or maybe just, "Respect is the rent." I'd figure it out later. That night, I turned off my phone. I closed my laptop. No messages, no alerts, no subtle digs from distant relatives or passive sighs through walls. I lit a single candle on my nightstand, the same one I used to keep buried in a drawer for special occasions, and climbed into bed. No earbuds, no white noise, just quiet. And for the first time since they moved in, I didn't fall asleep waiting for someone else to understand me. I fell asleep already knowing who I was. Sometimes peace doesn't come from who stays, but from what we finally let go. The day I lit that candle and slept without worry wasn't dramatic. It was just honest. In families, love can get tangled in silence and expectation. But true closeness isn't about always giving in. It's about being seen, heard, and respected. Boundaries aren't walls. They're invitations to healthier ways of loving one another. If this story reminded you of a quiet line you had to draw, or a moment you finally chose yourself, I hope you'll share it. I'd love to know how you found your own peace, one boundary, one breath at a time.